I'm playing one of my favourite games like a bucket load of times. Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple, a show devoted to board games, top 10s and the like, where I give my honest opinions regardless of the backlash that it gets me from everybody else. We'll get on with the video in just a moment, but first a quick word from the sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk. KIENDA stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to KIENDA and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
So in this Beyond the Base Game series we take a look at expansions only, because not enough channels cover expansions I seem to find. And this time we've got Wrath of the Lighthouse. This is a solo only expansion to one of my favourite games. It's already been mentioned in my top 100. It is right here, Portal Empires of the North, being kept guard by the Xatu mascot over here. And Empires of the North, as a very brief overview, is an engine building card game similar to its predecessor Imperial Settlers. You take control of a tribe and each tribe has its own card deck. You use this card deck, you play locations, you get resources, you play other cards, take actions that allow you to convert resources into points or do various other shenanigans, but each tribe functions differently in how it gains points, how it operates, and to date there's been a ton of expansions for it with like Roman factions, Egyptian factions, barbarian factions and Japanese factions, all of which I give a little guide to in a video that I did about a year or so ago, but by all means there's a link, go check it out. Now most people will tell you that Empires of the North is predominantly a solo only game. You know, you can play it with 2 players and I think it works quite well, but 3 and 4 is just kind of unnecessary because you don't interact with the opponents much unless you've got 1 or 2 certain factions in there. So most of the time you'll play it with 2, and honestly I just pretty much play this solo. So this is a game where you can play a scenario, it will have a victory point condition, some other little things, events that trigger off, and you just go through the scenario very briefly, and like within about 30-40 minutes you've done a game of this. I mean, it can be super fast. You only play through 4 rounds and the first couple of rounds might not even be that long. It's just a very cool, quick, fairly simple engine builder game, and I like it when things are streamlined like that. You know, you don't have to sort of jumble around too much in your head other than the cool combos that you're trying to do. So Wrath of the Lighthouse is predominantly for the solo crowd. There's no 2, 3, 4 player mode in this, you just play for it solo and that's it. So if you're a multiplayer gamer of Empires of the North, then stay away, this won't be for you. But what happens is that there are 15 scenarios in a sort of mini story narrative. But you'll play through about 12 scenarios with a couple of branching paths here and there where you might play a different scenario to another one depending on whether you won or lost a scenario. And the story itself is pretty basic. I mean, I'm not going to spoil very much, but you kind of start off as like, oh yeah, I'm an advisor to the Emperor. The Emperor wants me to go off and, you know, rejuvenate this, temple, cathedral that's been like lost forever, and like it's all a bit run down in this area. You basically go and kind of boost it back up again, but you also have to deal with some interesting characters and factions that turn up, as well as a bit of a mystery regarding a lighthouse, shall we say. I mean, it is called the Wrath of the Lighthouse after all. So, you know, the story itself is fairly basic. I mean, it's nothing major. You might get it like as a one-off TV episode in an animated series. This isn't like Tainted Grail style of like gritty writing or anything. It's just nice, it's pleasant, it gets you through, you know, probably not quite to the, you know, Ryan Lockett style things with like Near and Far and, you know, Sleeping Gods, but it's lighthearted. It's got some humour in it. It throws a chuckle every now and again, and it's enough to at least make you go, I wonder how this is going to end, or you're at least interested in the next part of the story. But yeah, don't go into this thinking that it's like a really, you know, detailed story narrative. It's not. It's just a way to have, well, 12, 15 scenarios put together, really.
Overall, I would rate it a C+. Okay? Not great.
Now, you do not have to play the campaign mode. You can just play the scenarios on their own. And, you know, the scenario booklet is similar to the scenario booklet you get in the original game. They've got the scenarios, like, listed out. And, you know, I'm playing through it as a campaign, but you could literally just, you know, open up one page, like, double page spread and play that. It's fine. You just get the pieces you need out of the box, the cards you need, and there you go, really. You can just do it as a standalone setup. You have a progress sheet, of which they only give you a couple in the box, which is kind of weird, but you know what, I don't kind of mind it. You've got a small version and a big version, depending on how small or big you want to write. This will effectively keep you going for 2 full playthroughs of the campaign, and if you want to print off more, you just get it off their website, which is, you know what, I'm kind of cool with that. I don't see why you need to give me a pad of 100 sheets for this kind of thing when you might only play through the campaign a few times. I'm glad that they just give you enough to do the first few plays, and then if you want to do it more, you have the opportunity to just go out and grab yourself a printed sheet. It's not too difficult. But the rest of the components are fairly sparse, to be honest. I mean, you get a basic box with a basic insert, some tokens, which I haven't even bothered to bag up because you only need them so much, and a small deck of cards, which this isn't all of it, but I mean, it is not huge, and they basically have different things like naval events and grain events and some, you know, different fields and different locations that you have. So, you know, there's not a huge amount of content in the box per se. In fact, I dare say that if you've cannibalized your Empires of the North box, you probably might be able to fit a bunch of this, if not all of it, in the actual main box. You know, certainly it's something I've got to do, but the only problem is I have a folded space insert, so whether the folded space insert will allow for this Wrath of the Lighthouse stuff, we'll have to see. I haven't actually got that far ahead. Now, the difference with these scenarios versus the ones you got in Empires of the North is that you do have some story elements. So the back of the rulebook has a bunch of paragraphs to read. As I mentioned, it's not the most stellar writing in the world, but there's a decent amount here. I mean, it's not like it's just a single sentence or anything. But you occasionally, when you do an action or when you fulfill a condition, it tells you to read a paragraph, you read it, and then it might get you to cross out things on your sheet, write down setup changes for the next scenario, and you just keep track of things as you go along. Now, the rulebook is fine. I mean, there's not a huge amount of rules in it to explain how the game works. You know, there's like about, what, like 2, 3, 4 pages that you need to understand the new stuff in here before you get going. So if you're already familiar with Empires of the North, you can pretty much jump into this, like, really easily. There are a few little errors dotted around, though. I have noticed, like, a couple of, like, paragraphs written the wrong way. There's actually a card. Was it? Yeah, I think it's this one, actually. Yeah, the Poor Market. It says, once you've assigned 4 rare resources to the market, read paragraph C4. It's actually C1 you're meant to read. C4 is a misprint. And there's a couple of other occasions where I found, like, you know, little tiny errors like that. Not enough to break the game with a bit of common sense, but it kind of feels like maybe it got to the final print and then it just needed one read through to make certain everything was all cool. I'd be surprised if this doesn't come out with a small errata at some point just to correct a few of those little errors. What I have found is that the continuity of the paragraphs is out of sync, because you'll read one paragraph. Let's say, for example, you have to go chase a, you know, I'm trying to think. Yeah, all right then. You're building up your cathedral, whatever, and you meet a faction, and they wear certain garments or whatever, and it's like, okay, cool. You've had a paragraph, you've interacted with these characters, and then you play more of the scenario, and then you read another paragraph, and then it says you go to the market, and you see people dressed up in the same stuff you just saw a minute ago, and it kind of claims, who could these people be, and what do they want? It's like, you've just talked to them in the previous... In fact, you've just had a council negotiation with them. So why are you confused about who these people are when you know exactly who they are already? There's little elements like that where it feels like there's a very cut and paste feel to some of these paragraphs where I read one bit and then the other bit is just repeating what I've already had, just telling it from a different context. That's kind of weird and a little bit off-putting from an immersion, like, narrative perspective. But honestly, I will say that when I'm playing this, I'm not overly playing it for the narrative. The narrative is there, it's fine, but really, this is... I think most people are going to be playing this as an excuse to get Empires of the North to the table again. And it has. I mean, it's been on my shelf for a while, and now I've had an excuse to go through it, like, 10 to 12 times, which is all great, because I love Empires of the North. It was a 10 out of 10 when I first played it and reviewed it. It's probably a 9 at least, maybe even still a 10. It's still a game I really enjoy. I never went into this thinking, oh, I'm going to have a cool story and it's going to be engaging and that. It's like, nah, It's there, it's every typical Euro campaign. But it now is 15 scenarios, because you don't have to play it as the campaign. You only got like about, what, 5 or 6, I think, in the original game, maybe 1 or 2 that were DLC, downloadable content. But now, I've got this lot. And you don't need to have played previous scenarios to do it. I mean, it will just say, setup changes, and it will, you know, it might say, prepare a naval event deck. Well, the rulebook will tell you how to do it. But it's not difficult to convert this into a typical basic scenario for yourself. Now, difficulty-wise has been kind of weird. The first scenario I thought was like damn near impossible. I thought, how am I supposed to get this many points? And the story kind of hints that you're almost supposed to fail the first one. I'm not sure. Maybe I just had a bad game. I don't know. But I just thought, how on earth am I supposed to get like 55 plus points with this scenario in 4 rounds? That just seemed a lot. But even though you lose a scenario, you have to lose 3 in a row before you actually lose outright. So you probably will and are expected to lose the occasional scenario, but it just takes you on a different path or changes your setup. It doesn't kick you out of the game. But I ended up on a bit of a winning streak after that first one, where I was just like, you know, oh, I lost that one, and then win pretty convincingly. So I don't know whether that was just because the stuff it gives you from scenario to scenario was a bit too much of a leg up, or maybe I was just having good games. I mean, I'm not an expert at Empires in the North, but I'd like to think I'm reasonable at the game.
Ah, smug mode.
Or maybe the factions just suited, who knows. But you could tweak the difficulty how you see fit, really. I mean, if you think that 45 victory points is too low for this particular scenario, then fine, up it to 55, up it to 60, do whatever you like. It doesn't break the scenario, it just ups the endgame condition. So you can tailor this to your heart's content and just do fine. So there's not much else to really say about Wrath of the Lighthouse. It is what it is. It's 15 scenarios that you can play individually, or you can play in a 12-long campaign. The campaign stuff is fun, it's interesting, and it will probably keep you going for 1, maximum 2 playthroughs. But after that, you're unlikely to go through the entire campaign again, even if you chose a different faction. I mean, just because I played with... Who did I play this one with? I played it with the Nanu Jerk faction. That's how I don't know if it's Nanu Jerk, but the way it's spelled, I like to phrase it Nanu Jerk.
Say whip. Whip. Now say cool whip. Cool whip. Cool whip. Cool whip.
But even if I went through the campaign with a Roman faction or an Egyptian faction, yeah, my play style would change, but nothing in the story or narrative is really going to change. You just might find some scenarios harder than others. One scenario might want you to get a lot of fish for extra points. Well, as this particular faction, getting fish is not difficult, because it's kind of my shtick. But then I might be playing a Roman faction who never sees any fish at all, and it's like, oh, that's a little bit more tricky. So you will have different experiences with different playthroughs, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, I'm just glad that I've now got a collection of solo scenarios that I can play at my will, and the fact that I'm going to get this game, you know, what, have I already played this about like 8 or 9 times through this campaign? I've got 3 more or so to do to finish it, and then, you know, I could play through again and get another 12 games. I'm playing one of my favourite games like a bucket load of times because of this expansion, so isn't that value enough, really? So, all in all, Wrath of the Lighthouse gets a 7 out of 10 for me. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's not going to suddenly, like, be a fantastic new addition to the thing. It's not even one I would consider that essential at all, really. It's just a case of, do you like Empires in the North? Are you a solo gamer? In which case, you might want to consider this, just to have another little fresh take on the game to just get it out off your shelf for a bit. You know, if you were bored with the original 5-6 scenarios, well, now you've got a ton more, and it'll be a nice little laugh. Nice little laugh, nice little chuckle, nothing to write home about, but still a good bit of fun. So that's all from me. I'm Luke Hector, and you've been watching The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, please remember you can thumb up the video, you can subscribe to the channel or the Patreon, but most of all, I'd like to hear your comments down below. What do you think of Empires in the North in general? What do you think of Wrath of the Lighthouse? Is it, as a solo gamer, are you likely to pick it up, or are you thinking of skipping it? But if you are a fan of Empires of the North, who's your favourite faction? Which one of the factions out of all the expansions do you like to use? And of course, if you are new to Empires of the North and you want more information on the game, check out my video, as I said, about the Empires of the North faction buyer's guide. You know, if that will tell you all you need to know about the factions and allow you to sort of dictate, okay, which order am I going to buy them in, etc. So until next time, you can check out more content on the channel, including a recent preview I did for the new Tainted Grail Kings of Ruin game, but also I'd like you to check out my Twilight Inscription review, the big epic roll and write of Twilight Imperium. Does it warrant a roll and write? So take care, and remember, whether you're a solo gamer or not, it's still only a game. Bye for now.